Hey, good afternoon. Yeah, I'm David Schroeder, and I'm here to introduce a new program that we're putting together in conjunction with Mifflin Gallery and the new Arts Council for Stanislaus County, Stanislaus Arts. The program is called Expose Yourself to Art. This is a program where we're going to invite local artists to join us in conversations about their life and their art. I'm going to be joined with a co-host who is Linda Scheller as we plumb the depths of the creativity of our guests. So welcome, Linda. Are you there? Come on, come aboard. There you are. Hi, Linda.
Hi. Thank you, David.
Yeah. Hey, a great new adventure for us.
Indeed.
Yeah. So since this is our first show and everybody's getting acquainted, you and I could get acquainted a little bit too. We have been on a show before. You interviewed me on a radio show at one time, I remember.
Right.
But beyond that, I know little about you. I know that you're a poet and that we have participated in another program called Collision, where poets and photographers were paired together, and you would write a poem and the photographer would take a picture and we would present it that way. But beyond that, I don't know much about you. So if you wouldn't mind, tell me a little bit about you being a poet, about how you came to be.
So. I grew up in New York State, always loved reading and words and music. I came out to California when I was 19, went to Napa College and then Stan State. I majored in English, minored in drama, and then I got a teaching credential and spent 36 years teaching. Retired in 2017, which is when my first book was published, Fierce Light, published by Future Cycle Press. I've been submitting poetry, plays, essays, since the 80s, so I have about 60 publication credits, and I'm putting together another manuscript currently.
Wow.
And
so, when does that come out?
Well, I just started, so we shall see. I'll keep you posted.
Okay. Sure.
How about you, David? How did you all get started?
Yeah. What to say? Most people right now recognize me as a photographer because that's what I exhibit at Mifflin Gallery and other places. But I wasn't always a photographer. That's kind of a late life hobby. I've been involved in the arts my whole life, painting, drawing, mostly on stage as a singer and actor. Photography came in late. I was asked to do a presentation of artist therapy and I needed some pictures, so I bought a camera. I think I was in my 40s at the time, and I started taking pictures, and I erroneously thought that this was an easy way to make art. I could just push a button and there the picture was. And since then, I've continued with photography and discovered it's one of the most difficult art forms I've ever tried. But anyway, enough about me. We're not here to talk about me or you, except to introduce each other. Our guest today is Nicole Slater, one of the premier artists in the Modesto Central Valley area. Always been a fan of hers, and so let's bring her on. And there you are. Hi, Nicole.
Hi.
Hey there.
Thank you, David. Thank you.
You're wonderful.
I appreciate that.
You know, one of the things that's influencing all of the artists in the area right now is this pandemic. In other words, you've been, sequestered like the rest of us. What have you been doing during this time? How has it affected you?
It's funny you said that. The other day, I had a gal contact me through Instagram, and she said, I just want you to know you inspire me. I don't know how you're finding the inspiration these days. It's just crazy, all these things going on. And so I said, I think that's why I'm painting, is because it's how I deal with stress a little bit and joy. So it's everything. My art is my happiness, it's my sadness, it's everything. So through this pandemic, I had to reinvent myself. I have students. I'm a creative director for the Artist Loft here in Modesto, California. And I had to find a way to teach online, which that is not easy to do because art is so tactile. It's such a touchy-feely, I paint with my hands, I talk with my hands, so I'm always doing things with my hands. And when I found that there was that barrier between me and my students, it became really tough. But I put on my bootstraps and I got busy and found, the technology was very helpful. Zoom, they did help pay for teachers like me to be able to teach and continue teaching. And the kids, to be quite honest with you, they're the ones who were my heroes. They're the ones who kept me going because they would actually help me log in. They taught me how to use it. So I'm very lucky because of my students, really.
Well, wonderful.
Yeah.
So
they're incredible.
okay. So let's find out a little bit about you. Linda, you had some questions for her?
Yeah. Nicole, I'm very curious to know when your artistic career started, when you first knew you were an artist. Please take us back.
Yeah, I truly think I was born an artist. But age 5, I was one of those girls that would be outdoors all day long until the dinner time bell rang and I had to come inside. And I would literally get all the kids on the block to make mud pies with me, or I would have them go and get these balls. They were oak balls. They would make ink out of them. So I was always doing things like that. So at age 5, I'll never forget, I was sitting amongst a bunch of my friends. We were digging, making the mud pies, or actually they were actually beautiful little bowls that we'd make. And I remember actually hearing a voice saying, "You will create beauty with your life." And that's all I remember. And from then on, I just went for it. That was what I did.
Wow. So
Right.
what next? What happened next? You got this message right beyond, like,
Yeah, I got this.
what did you do with that?
Yeah.
Where did that take you to?
I know,
School?
it was so weird. Because I thought, okay, this is too weird. But as a child, you just think, okay, well, maybe this is normal. So in school, I just took up with all the art classes I could take. I entered art contests. I always was drawing, but I just never took it seriously. I never knew that's what I wanted to do. And to be quite honest with you, my mother had passed away pretty young. I was age 15. And from the time I was 12 to 15, I watched her slowly pass. And that was difficult. And art was my savior. It was something that was my rock that I could depend on and create and just get away from negativity. So I think it sprouted the most in high school. That's where I decided that's really what I knew I wanted to do. Yeah.
So where else do you get your inspiration? Was that an inspirational point for you? Something that drove you to?
Yeah, it really was. The inspiration was because it was a realization that I could create my world. I could create beauty. I could create however I wanted to create it. So I continued through high school. I had a teacher that I loved, Kawasaki, and loved her to death. She was so incredible and supportive. And that's really who inspires me today to be an art instructor. The way she treated me is how I treat my students. Everything was a positive, and she was very uplifting, and I just really appreciated that during that time in my life. So after high school, I went off to college and received my art degree. So I went to Stanislaus State University and loved the program. And I learned everything from printmaking to sculpture. It was just incredible. We had this huge warehouse I call it a warehouse. I don't know what you call it, a studio, I guess. And I mean, they had a foundry, they had a whole clay studio, they had a printmaking area, and it was just, it was candy. I just went bonkers. I literally was that student that the professor gave the key to and said, go ahead and stay. And I would stay there 2:00 in the morning, easy, every night, and just paint and print. And yeah, it was so fun.
Wow.
And after that, yeah, it was incredible. And I met so many great people and other artists. I'm still friends with lots of them today. So that was really neat. That was also an influence in my art because of printmaking, because of sculpture, because of all the different mediums I was reusing. Later on, I just said, oh my gosh, I want to do this. I want to do that. So it became an evolution in my art. It's, I toyed with plastic in my art. I toyed with metal. I did oils. I did clay. So it's evolved to this level of where I am today because of that background.
Nicole, after graduation, you had a 24-year career in expressive and commissioned art. Could you tell us about that, please?
Oh, okay. So that really started right after college. So after college, I started doing interior design and went into homes and looked around. And I thought, wow, these people need help. They need art. I found that people didn't understand what fine art was. And I myself, a young, fresh out of college, I didn't understand how expensive original art was. I just didn't get it. And at the same time, I knew that these adults needed it. And so that started with the interior design. I said, okay, I'm going to go into these homes and I'm going to add my art because they can't afford art. So I would, unfortunately, but fortunately, I painted things at a really great price that they could afford, and I used it as my background. So I used my paintings and then would do their homes based off of that. So that's how that all started. And then later on, I decided, I'm doing so much art and I love that more than the design part. So I went full force. I just decided that art and teaching others is what I wanted to do. So that's where I went. And it's funny because my husband owns the furniture store that I worked for. And it was a hard thing to tell him that I was leaving. I was one of his top selling interior designers, and my heart wasn't there. And I knew that life was short. I saw through my mom what it took. And I knew that I didn't want to leave this earth without doing my true passion. So that's really how it all started. I said, I have to, this is not even a choice. So I had a long talk with my husband, and we opened up the upstairs loft, upstairs from the furniture store. And I was going to be selfish. This was going to be my own space. I was going to do my own paintings. And all of a sudden I looked around one day and I said, oh my gosh, I am selfish. I need to share this. There's so many artists out there that want to get started like I did, that don't have a place to paint, or maybe they have a family and their kids are running around. So I opened up my doors. I just said, come on in and I'll teach you. You can have a space here. And that's where I am today. So I teach from age 4, and my oldest one is 84. So I have a big, diverse group of people that I see every day.
So right now you're primarily a painter, but you mentioned that you tried out all other art forms.
Yeah.
How did that transition come about? I mean, you tried them out, and painting is what fit for you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Well, printmaking, believe it or not, is an expensive process, or at least the way I used to do it. I did a lot of intaglio and litho stones. Well, those you can't just, get a litho stone. They're 1,000 years old, and they weigh 500 pounds, and they cost, a bunch of money, and that wasn't going to happen. So that narrowed that out right away. The clay, I didn't have access to the kiln, and yeah, it was something I just felt like it was not enough. I knew that art, I wanted to share a story, and there's only so much on a piece of clay that I felt I could express. I love if I could, I would do clay, but I can't. So I do paintings, and there's so many different ways to paint. I think that's why I went that direction, because like I said, I've used metal to paint on, I've used plastic, I've used glass. I think it allowed me to do some dimensional work on a 2-dimensional plane, and I liked that part of it. So yeah, I kept the art, I kept the painting.
Yeah. Good.
Nicole, who
Yeah.
have been some of your
Really,
men-
I think because of the accessibility of it. Yeah.
who are some of your mentors and muses?
Oh, well, like I said, my mentor was probably in high school. That was at least my first one. In college, I would say it was Professor Martin Camarada. I really appreciated his guidance. I did later on in life, I would take, different courses and classes, TC at Blackburn. There was different artists I would visit and take some classes from. But really my mentor really is just everyone. I kind of learn and grow from everyone. There's not really one particular person. I would say there's definitely a springboard. They would be my sounding board, I should say. But really, everyone's my mentor. I learn from everyone. Yeah.
Well, that brings up another question, which is a lot of artists talk about getting stuck, going through a dry period. Ever since I've known you, you've never stopped. Have you ever had artist block?
I've never, no. I will say this, I've had sad times. So, losing someone special in my life, but I actually grow from that. So even though, it could be acted or treated as a stunt, it was actually a growth, because I think with art, you kind of do need to step back a little bit sometimes, reframe, reevaluate. I thought about this the other day. I actually paint pretty much every day. Unless I'm sick or even when I travel, I bring my paint. So it's literally, I feel like there's a paintbrush in my sleeve and I just pop out. There's never a time when I'm not painting. So it's hard for me. I will tell you this from students, though. I have learned from students what that means, because I didn't know even what that meant, because I've never experienced a dry spell or a block. But what I found from students is usually it's just because they're thinking too much. They're not being their child, their inner child. That's the secret. So every morning when I get here, I scribble. I literally scribble on a canvas. That's my first thing I do, and I grab a cup of coffee. Those are my vices. I then sit back and I immediately grab anything that's in the way. It could be a sponge, it could be a brush, it could be, and I usually will just throw paint anywhere I want on this canvas. And then I envision. So I'm an intuitive artist. So a lot of times I'll just see things. I'll see, a shape of a leaf or the colors of the rainbow that remind me of a trip that we took on in Ireland, whatever it is. So I'll grow from those moments and build off of that. So I always tell my students, if they're having a block, literally pretend you're 4. Like, don't think outside of what people are telling you to do. Try not to say, oh, this is what sells, or this isn't what's selling. Just go with your heart, because that's always the right one. That's always the right tool. That's the secret. Yeah. Your heart.
It's working for you, obviously. Yeah.
What are some of your artistic goals, Nicole?
Did you hear that? Or are we having technical difficulties?
I can't hear. I'm sorry. I just heard some scratching. What was your question? I'm sorry.
Oh, I wondered about your artistic goals.
Oh, my goals. Oh, they're big. It's the go big or go home. So originally, I'll never forget, I went to it was a vision board place that you did vision boards. And the lady said, don't bother putting, get a cup of coffee. You're going to own the coffee company, go big. So I would do vision boards, and so some of them I'm not going to share just because I think you probably think I was a wackadoodle, which I am. But my goals are more in tune with, I think, a lifestyle goal. So, for example, I want to be more organized. I want to teach as many people that want to learn art or know about art. I want to educate the general public about art. That seems to be a big thing right now. There's so many artists, but there's not I feel like there could be more background information that we could share to the public that would help them become better buyers or art supporters. So I want to do that. But truly, I want to have a endowment or a foundation. Oh, I have the air coming on. I might have to turn that off. Hold on for 1 minute. Sorry.
Uh-oh, there she goes. Well, okay. So now what you can see here is Nicole's fabulous studio. It's a wonderful place. If she allows you up there, she'll give you a cup of coffee and you can sit around in this.
Sorry, it's a giant air.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just
behind me. Are you talking about my studio? Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I'll have time to share some of it.
Okay. So, okay, another question. I noticed a couple of years ago you won Best in Show Painting at Michelin Gallery. Have you won other awards? What are some of your accomplishments?
Oh, wow. You just jogged a memory. That I treasure. That was unbelievable. Yeah, so I received a phone call actually from John Wynn. He called and said, "Did you hear you got Best of Show?" And I thought he was joking. So I started laughing and I said, "Oh, you're crazy. You're so funny." And so I said, well, "Let's do lunch." And so we went to lunch and he said, "So what do you think? And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "You really got Best of Show." And so he literally had to take me down there to show me the ribbon. I couldn't believe it. So that was that was an awesome experience. I love that.
That's wonderful.
That was great. Yeah. So I would say, I'm always doing things. I do things for it's an organization here for children in domestic violence homes. So I'm always doing things for them. I just did a recycling program. So the Modesto Business Recycling Program has awards. So I just received a job to do the award package for them, some of the cards, and then the other gal did the sculpture. I'm just always finding little fun things to do because my brain's always going and my hands are moving. I have to create. I have to do it. So, so I'm always coming up with something. I would say some of my biggest achievements, though, is Hedgecock Paving had me do this giant, it was a 12-foot painting. It was 10 feet high. It was incredible. Unfortunately, I don't think I have the picture to share with you. I have it, but I didn't give it to you to share today. I should have. That was a big moment for me. PSC, John Mayle, his company had me do their lobby in, again, they were probably at least 10 feet in height and width, and just really cool, very different. And that was fun because I used their products. So they're a boxing company, they're a packaging company. So I recycled and repurposed what they sell. So when they have their clientele come in, they just think it's a piece of art. And they're like, "Oh my God, this is a wonderful." They'll say, "Did you know that that's your boxes? And that's the template we used for your packaging. And she used this part for your," so that was kind of, then they love it because it's part of the business and they're repurposing. Yeah, they're doing something good for the environment, so that's cool.
So, yeah. Linda, do you have another question before we move on to Nicole's art?
I just wondered about the challenges and joys of integrating art and life. How does that go for you?
Oh, okay. So you want the joys? Say it again.
Integrating art and life. Do you have any challenges, and what are the particular joys for you?
Oh, okay. So time is my enemy. So I want there to be another life, so I can paint some more. So time is a limitation for me, because I will literally be painting up here till 7 o'clock at night, and my husband will pop up and say, "You need to go home. We need dinner. You need to feed the dogs, and we need to do the, So life, just life. I have learned though, anything I wear, it's all painted on, and I don't care. It used to bother me, and I would almost be subconscious about it. One time I went to a black tie event, and I had paint running down my arm. I didn't even realize that I didn't have it cleaned off before the event. And I was sipping on a little drink, and they started just cracking up laughing, and I just laughed with them. What do you do? So I think just going with the flow, making fun of the silly things that happen as being an artist, not taking yourself so serious. I think just making it my lifestyle. Yeah.
At one point, you said you told your husband that this is what you were going to do. Is there a story there?
Well, kind of. I was very ill. I got very sick. Almost died, and during the time I was in the hospital for a couple weeks, and during that time I remember saying, oh my gosh, I have not done what I told my mom before she died. I said, she said, I want you, whatever you do, I want you to be happy. I want you to do what you love. And I realized I wasn't doing that. The interior design wasn't my love. It wasn't my number one love. And I knew that if I didn't do it when I did, it wasn't going to happen, because that 40, I believe. And I knew that, life is only so long. So I decided to take it full force and just go for it. Yeah. I took a chance. I took a big chance. I think people thought I was crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was making good money doing what I was doing.
But point of view, it's been a great decision. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so.
So anyway, why don't we move on to a different phase of the program? We have some of your art, and we'd like to share it with people and have you talk about it a bit. So if we can, whenever that transition, there you go. Okay, there's some. We'll get it there. There we go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I gave you images starting in, was it 2016 or 17?
I think 17.
Okay. So I believe this is from that beginning 2017. And, I think this image would be a great piece to start talking about, because you asked about stifling or challenges. And this one was during a time when I was a little bit going through a tough time, and I wasn't stifled. I just didn't know what art style I wanted. So I decided to do a challenge to myself, and I did a color wheel challenge. So I would do a different color in my journals, and ended up applying them to paintings. This is one. And that was kind of a cool way to get inspiration. So you can see the abstract nature, the background, and then you see these, I want to say they're kind of like cotton pods or poppies that are coming up. I see even a little bit of an Art Deco influence. I went back in and outlined some of the abstract lines in the back. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, that was a fun thing. After I'd painted all the color wheel, then I also did an auction, and even gave them away. So what I did is, I know a lot of times people say, oh, don't give away your art. Well, it was more like, I just wanted to share my joy. So I did. These went all the way to India. They went all over the country. So that was really fun. Yeah. Very cool.
Next, should we look at another one? There we go.
Oh,
yeah. Okay. So, yeah. So this was right during around that same time. So that's what broke out of that. So this is where I'm known to be a little bit confusing, because I do know how to do a lot of different techniques. This is palette knife. So I went from the smooth surface of paper and very almost illustrative to this. And I do that a lot. So I'll juxtapose, I'll do like, you know, a series where everything's flat. And then all of a sudden I just, wow, okay, now I have to do everything with texture. So this was part of that. So that evolved from, if you notice, again, the abstraction of the rocks, the cliffs, the water, the sky, and then the more traditional or more realistic trees in the background. But the foreground is more abstracted. I don't know. My picture's pretty small here, so it's hard for me to see. But yeah, do you like that one?
Oh, I very much love it. Just love it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you grew up in Minnesota, right?
I did, yeah. Well, I was born in Minnesota, so I traveled a lot. My father was an electronic engineer and also did other things for the Livermore Lawrence Lab. So he an engineer, and so he traveled a lot. So we moved. So yes, I was born in Minnesota. I lived in New Mexico, Arizona, LA. So I did travel quite a bit. Yeah.
That's lovely.
Thank you. Oh, okay. This is another challenge. So notice I went from this a little bit more busy palette knife to this real soft, almost tranquil look. And this was done on metal. So these were, this was a 30-day challenge. This was a day, this is one time where I just, again, needed a break from that other series. And I said, I'm going to challenge myself 30 days to go online to teach myself how to teach, or to at least paint online live. So that's what I did. So every morning I'd get up, and 9 o'clock I'd turn on my video, go on live, and people on Facebook and YouTube, everyone watched these videos of me reading these. And then at the end of the series, they would purchase the one they wanted. So it went from 1 to 30, and each day I would walk in and have no pre-planned idea. So it was literally no photo to look at, nothing, just an inspiration. And I would just sit down, and you could still go on and see these videos. They're still posted all over. But yeah, that was a fun series. I loved doing that. Those are oils on metal, by the way. Okay, so again, you'll see the change again. So I went from metal, and this is paper. So this is plastic and paper. So it's like a UPO paper, which is a plastic-based product. It's called UPO. And then I applied my printmaking skills. So all the papers you see were handmade. I made the printings on all the papers. And then once I made a pile of these papers, watercolor, and then applied these rice papers back over on top. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
That was a really fun series. So that was Three Sisters. And, you know, I had cards and things because we can all identify, right? You know, that's like your best friend you're talking to, or your sister. Or, yeah, that was fun. Yeah. Okay. So the dancers. So you can see I started getting into people. So that was, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe this was 2018 or 19 now. I think it was 2018. I started going to my students' ballet performances. Their parents would invite me, and that would, I don't know, it was just something that I didn't do as an older child. I didn't have a lot of money, and growing up, that wasn't something we did. And I didn't do it in college. And so as a grown-up, I discovered the ballet, and that was so cool. So yeah, that was inspired by my students. Yeah, that was. I love some pencil work. There's ink work. I think what I love about dancing is the expression of dancing. So when I paint, if you can get that. So if you notice the light above her head and the silhouette form where there's light coming from the back, because on the stage, it's so mesmerizing because the figures move amongst this light, and it just, the shadows drop and they come back, and it's just like I just loved it. So yeah, so that was part of that whole series. I love to draw, so that was giving me the ability to draw and paint. And I believe that was oils. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. And again, okay, so this, so I guess my everyday life does influence my art now that you say that. So I went to the Oscar de la Renta show in San Francisco, and I could not get over the figures that we saw, the way that they did the show. So these women that I have on here were inspired by, he had these mannequins. So during this show, Oscar de la Renta had all these gowns from his humble beginnings all the way to his current. And these figures, the way they did the show was so incredible. They would have these silhouetted sheer fabrics behind them, and then they would have these forms that they shaped to look like they were moving on a stage. And so yeah, so that was the influence. I just really liked the textures and all of his patterns he would mix. So that's where that came from. That was actually done on burlap too, by the way.
I was going to ask, there seemed to be a bunch of mesh or something behind that.
Yeah, burlap. That was burlap. So I'm always, I always tell someone, one time someone said, I don't have any money, I can't paint. I say, well, good, go get some mud and go get, go through someone's garbage and get some paper and just, start smearing it on there. Believe me, it'll probably be your best painting you ever did. So, that was fun.
As you've said, you paint on anything. Right.
Anything. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, also, again, I went to that San Francisco show. My favorite restaurant is the Boulevard in San Francisco.
Really?
So I frequented there quite a bit. And this is actually a commission. So what happens with me is I love your first instinct or your first aha moment where I walked into this restaurant that I had never experienced before, and I saw this giant champagne bucket, and just, it was so fancy, and I just loved it. And so I felt so grown up. And so when I did this commission, it was based off of going to dinner with that person. We went out to dinner, and she said, I would love for you to paint that. So that's that scene of us at the bar at the Boulevard Restaurant in San Francisco. Yeah.
Wow.
And that was I love expressionistic figurative work, so that you can see the movement in his arm, looks like he's getting ready to maybe pour you a drink. Yeah.
That was one of my favorite restaurants in San Francisco too.
Yeah, I just love it. And again, this was the somewhat the Oscar de la Renta, and this was the Umbrella series. They kind of, I would say they aligned with each other, because during his show, he had some of his figures had umbrellas and these women in his dresses and the lighting. And so that was done on copper. That was a mixed media on copper plate. And again, this goes back to, I wanted to achieve that lighting that you just can't get with just paint, the metallic quality. So that's where those evolved from on those figures that you saw. So that was part of that fashion show series and now the Umbrella series. So those really kind of aligned around the same time.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. So
I still have a copy of that one if anyone's interested.
okay. Next.
Yeah.
Do we have a next here? There we go.
Again, Umbrella series. That was also on.
Right.
With the abstracted figure. I wasn't going for the dress or it was just form, just playing with form, and how much can you abstract something to still look like a person in umbrellas and that kind of thing. So yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, see? So out of that became flowers. Where did that derive from? So again, it goes back to the dresses. He did, Oscar de la Renta did these incredible voluminous florals that were crocheted and stitched onto these dresses and stuff. And I also met some other people that were playing with oils and cold wax. So that's how that became to be. That was really me just wanting to go back a little bit to traditional art. Yeah, it's funny. It just happens. I don't really know why I did that. I would flip a lot. I think it's a growth thing.
Yeah.
What was that, David?
Every once in a while, you touch reality, right?
Yeah, you know, and I'll say, you know, these sold very well, and people love the textures. They almost are like frosting. If you saw them in person, you literally think it's like icing on there. Yeah, those were really fun.
Yeah. So what's next here? Oh, there we go. I was hoping that would come up.
Yeah, so that was the best of show. So that you know, it's interesting if you flip back to that last painting and then you look at the colors and you look at the organization of these forms, you can kind of see, you know, how that can develop, and that's what happened. Again, I wanted to play with something a little different. The last ones were done on board, and now I'm doing these on loose canvas. So I would lay giant tarps down on the floor, and some of these paintings are 8 feet, somewhere in there. So they're giant. This one wasn't. This one I think was about 40 by 30. If you look at it, I used everything from mica. There's string. There's forms that are organic and biomorphic in that sense, where they evolve from abstract to these patterns. One thing that I called this the Entwine series, and the reason why, because when you take a line form and you entwine, if you take a bunch of, you know, string and you start entwining, you know, messing them up and piling them up, it's amazing what comes out of that. The forms that you can get naturally are just incredible. And that's where I always tell people, don't overthink what you're painting. Just, that's your intuition. Let your intuition go. So that was a very much an intuitional painting that came out called the Entwine series. And it was so fun. I loved doing those. Lots of metallics and layers, lots of layers. Yeah.
Well, you had fun doing it, and it won a prize. Okay, so what do we have?
And there you go. So I always bring people back, don't I?
Yep.
I got to get my people back in. So I got the idea when I was doing the Entwine series, and I thought about when I sketch people, I do the same thing. I go in and I kind of scribble and I find faces. And so that came out of the Entwine series. So those were my Entwine women. So I did, so those were women that I evolved out from the Entwine series. So if you look at it, they're very much similar in style to that. Yeah.
So,
again, I think that was part of the Entwine. Maybe, I think, getting closer to what I called the in cahoots. So if you notice my titles it was a sequel to the Entwine. So, you know, movies have sequels, so can art. So that was my sequel. So that was my in cahoots.
Okay. Next.
Yeah. And I think it was 2019. I've probably been telling people, again, Entwine, 2019. Okay. You can see some of the flowers starting to emerge out of those. Getting back to flowers again. Entwine. So that's a good way to show you the size and scale. That one's 77. I remember that so well because it was such a weird size. So all these were custom sized because of the fact that I was throwing these on the floor and just doing them loose. So that was 77 by 77.
Wow. Gives an idea of the size in which you work.
Yeah.
Impressive.
And that was one of the smaller smaller ones, actually.
Yeah. So what are you working on? Oh, there you go.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I remember the name
Again,
of that.
the
That's In
that was
Cahoots.
the ink. Yeah,
Okay.
in cahoots.
Oh, that's fascinating.
So, before we run out of time here, what are you working on now? You have something brand new going on. You
Yeah,
paint.
so I'm bringing it all back, David. So I'm bringing it home. It's called At Home. And what it's doing, it's so weird because doing art, it really is almost like a bread trail, a crumb, your little crumbs, your little trail. So this is pretty much all my things evolving to one thing. So you'll see in each painting a little entwine going on. You'll see floral. You'll see mixed media, abstract. My love of furniture, working downstairs for 24 years. I collect these old chairs. So that's one thing you're going to see in this series. And it's all about being home. And of course, with this whole virus that went into play in our world, that was something that may have came out of that. I don't know. I was home a lot. But I just love the form of chairs. I love the symbolism of the chairs, or just the idea that how many people sat in the chair, how many memories were shared in that chair, how many people, shared a story, or maybe, I love the idea of that. And so you can even see in the back, there's some entwine going on back there. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And these, yeah.
You have quite a few of these, and let's see them all.
So what I did on these, what's fun is my husband does have them downstairs because of course they look great with his furniture. But I did put them just last night, actually. Anyone who's interested, I have a coupon code. It's called, you just put in Facebook Live, and I'm giving everyone $50 towards any purchase of anything on my website. So, but these I want to share with people because they mean a lot to me. They're very special to me. Home is special. I love being home. If I'm not at the studio, I'm home. I love it. And this is these pieces are large. I do have some smaller ones. That one right there, I believe, is 4 feet by 6 feet, something like that. 5 feet. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
But you can see in the baskets and the entwine, you can see some of the Entwine series going on in there. You can see some of the texture that I had in that mountain scene earlier. You could see even the stylistic shapes in the chairs going back to my color wheel challenge. And yeah, lots of things going on there.
Yeah, this is maybe a question I could have come up with before, but you mentioned that your pictures can be seen in the furniture store. What's that like for you? I mean, some pictures go with furniture, some don't. Yours, as they're trying to figure out what I'm saying. Sometimes I know you've had art in the store that, doesn't go, does go. Have you played around with that concept at all? Are you trying to come up with pictures that would go with furniture? That's an odd way of
Actually, that's a good question, because I think it's important people. Art is interesting because there's the artist that paints for something, and there's the artist that just paints whatever they want. Both are great. I think it's great. I do have to say, I do paint what I want and hope that it does fit in a home or works in a home. This particular grouping, this At Home, because of the fact that it's based on design, I really focused on not design in the home so much, but the design of my work. So I really took the time. I took a class with Mark Ains, and he's a colorist. And so if you noticed in my paintings, I've really focused on I did some classes with Nicholas Wilton, and so there's some texture and techniques I learned from him. So it's kind of really These are pieces that would go in a home, they go in an office. I think they would go in a lot of different situations, but the scale, like you said, is important. So if you're doing a tiny painting, there's, you can put them in little places here and there. This is a piece that you over a sofa, maybe over a buffet. So they are larger scaled. They are meant to be in bigger spaces. Yeah. So I am limiting a little bit as to where they're going. Yeah.
Okay. So, Linda, any further
I think that's
last thoughts about some of her paintings?
Yeah. Fabulous. And I'm amazed at the variety.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, stay tuned.
Good.
One of the things, Nicole, that you didn't have any pictures of. I remember when I first became aware of you were painting on glass, which is a
right.
And there were a lot of florals then, or something.
Yeah. So so I did reverse paintings on glass. I still do that. Those are on commission right now. There's two things that happen with the industry. One is they were actually on plexiglass, and plexiglass, because of the gas that's used or the oils, is very expensive. So if you can imagine when you paint on plexiglass and you're on a substrate that's $200 for a piece that's maybe 3 feet by 4 feet, it's scary. That's a scary investment. But it's also something you can't erase. So once you paint on whatever's on there, you can't take it off because I'm painting on the back side. So it really limits the subjects that you paint, I think, unless you're very skilled in a different form. So they usually were either abstract, florals, things that I felt really at home painting. So yeah, and those actually, I will evolve back into those too. But it will be similar to my at-home collection, the same kind of look going forward. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we're closing in on the end of the show, and we have a thing where we're going to plumb the depths of your personality.
Oh, no.
Yeah. We call it Artist Ad Lib.
Oh.
These are like off-the-cuff questions.
Let me take a drink for this.
Take a drink. Okay. Oh, look at that. Oh, is he your hero?
I love Bob Ross.
You love all of them, yeah.
Such a gentle soul. Yeah. Okay, so what are we all doing this, or am I the only one that's going to be doing
We'll put a timer on this, and we'll start with Linda there.
Okay.
What is your favorite animal and why?
Oh, it has to be a dog. I love dogs. I have 3. I have, dogs are a man's best friend and a woman's best friend. It's definitely mine. I love them.
Okay. If you have a soul, what color is it?
Ooh, I would have to say my soul would be, that's a really good one. I would say it's kind of a blue. Actually, it's funny. I have a paint that I forgot to say this. I make my own paints. So it's called Bicycle Blue. That's what my soul is, Bicycle Blue.
Bicycle Blue, wow.
Yeah. It's a really pretty color.
Finish this statement. I frequently dream about
painting.
Oh.
I actually paint. Sometimes I will paint a full painting in my dreams.
That's great.
And I'm exhausted by the time I wake up.
All right, here we go. Fame, love, or money?
Oh, love, for sure.
Oh, okay.
It's all about love.
Okay.
What sound do you like best?
Ooh, I would say the sound of a laugh. What's better than that? A child.
Well, let's go the other direction. What sound do you like the least?
Ooh, I would say the sound of a crash.
Crash, okay.
Yeah, don't like that.
What gives you hope?
I would say my children, my students, the future artists. They're my hope.
Okay. So, if you weren't a painter, artist, what would you be? What would you do instead?
I'd be sad. I'd just be a sad soul. I don't know. I don't know. What I'd
Sit around and weep in your beer or something.
do. Mhm.
Okay.
What's your go-to food?
Ooh, go-to food. I'd have to say, well, here where we live in the valley, I would have to say, and it sounds crazy, but I love the little taco trucks. So, yeah, we'll go get a little taco truck. I love them.
So, what kind of superstitions or rituals do you have?
Ooh, I try not to step on a crack.
I remember that
And
one.
what else? And the other thing I do tell my students up here, they cannot use the word can't. That is not a word they use. And yeah, so, and I definitely don't ever think negative. I try not to think negative.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do I have one more, David?
Yeah.
Okay. If you could snap your fingers and go anywhere in time and space, where would you go?
Oh my goodness. Oh, I would have to say I would say the 60s when I was born.
All
I want
right.
to see what it was like. Why am I so weird?
I don't know. I love the 60s too, but I wasn't born there. So
Oh,
I was an old man by then. So one final one.
okay.
What's it going to say on your tombstone? Other than your name?
She never stopped. She just never stopped.
Okay. So anyway, that brings us kind of to the end. Any final questions for her, Linda?
No, thank
have
you. Marvelous.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun. I hope this inspires other artists to hop on here and do the same here.
I'm sure it will. And the technical problems we had at the beginning and occasionally during the show, it's going to teach us a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, what they didn't see behind the scenes of me trying to log into this, right?
Yeah, right. So people ask.
Well, I just want to say also thank you to everyone that supports my art and supports the local artists and my little students. I really appreciate it, and thank you for being here.
Great.
Thanks.
And just to get people's curiosity up, next week we have Jack Souza. Next week. Oh, there it is at the bottom of our screen from Prospect Theater Project.
Oh, cool.
Another local artistic icon.
Oh,
So
that's awesome.
hope you all tune in. So thanks for being here. Sign off.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.